Hello, folks. Welcome to All-Stars Online Season 6. 6 seasons into Online All-Stars. I'm your host, Winston. And this week, we have a very, very special guest. Not just because his surname is Douglas, but because he's the 2022 World Barista Champion from Australia, Mr. Anthony Douglas. Welcome, Anthony.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
This is probably like your 15th interview in the last 3 weeks. It's probably been a busy time.
Yeah, I've done a few. Yeah.
Okay, I've got a ton of questions for Anthony, but before we get started, as we usually do, I would first like to recognize our sponsors.
All-Stars Online is supported by season sponsor Barista Attitude. Barista Attitude is the 2022 to 2025 World Barista Championship qualified espresso machine sponsor and proud to support competitors around the world with Tempesta coffee machines. Learn more at barista-attitude.com. This episode is also supported by Scotsman Ice.
Thank you very much to our sponsors. We can see a beautiful Barista Attitude over Anthony's left shoulder. In this episode, and I'm super excited, we're going to be chatting to Anthony about his coffee career, becoming the WBC champion in his hometown in Melbourne. And later, we'll also get to see his signature beverage video. So stay tuned to that. Let's get started. I think this is going to be a long one, so bear with me here, folks. I'm very excited to chat to this man. Where are you at the moment, and where are you working, Anthony?
So I'm actually here in the training room. So this is where I prepared for the WBC as well as the previous competitions. Based here in Melbourne, Axel Coffee Roasters in Australia.
There's quite a few Axel stores though. Like I happened to walk past one on the Saturday after finals, but it was closed. And I remember that you were going to be doing something at one of the stores, and I was like, is this the store? I'm going to go in and see and taste the coffee.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the same store. So which store is this, Anthony? Like, you in the training room? Where exactly in Melbourne?
So this store is this is our original shop. It's 322 Burwood Road in Hawthorne. So this is where the magic all started. 2010, this store was opened. And yeah, since then we've opened another 15 stores under the Axel name and a few more stores under different names as well.
Beautiful. Okay, so
yeah.
before we get back into Axel, let's go back, right? How did you first get into coffee? How long have you been in coffee?
Yeah, so I've been in coffee for about 13 years. When I was younger, I lived in Sydney for a couple of years.
Okay.
I just wanted a bit of a change of pace. And at the time, I was actually a baker. So did my apprenticeship and I was making bread for about 4 years. I got sick of the night shift and also the lack of social life, I guess. So a friend of mine offered me a job at a restaurant. It was a Spanish restaurant in North Sydney. And in the restaurant, they had a deli. And whenever I worked behind the deli, I would make the occasional cup of coffee. Like maybe 4 or 5 coffees a day. Had no idea what I was doing, but I really enjoyed the process. And eventually I missed Melbourne too much. So I came back and all I wanted to do was make coffee. I don't know what it was. I was just really drawn to just wanting to go through the process of making coffee.
Okay. What year was this, more or less?
It was around 2009, I want to say. Yeah, 2009, I think.
Okay, and so that was just before Axel started, right?
Yeah.
What was your first official coffee job like? Your first?
Yeah, so I worked in a couple of places, and there were sort of places with a coffee machine, but not necessarily a cafe. And then finally, I worked in a cafe at the bottom of a food court. It was very high volume. Basically, the focus was how quick can we get your coffee in your hands. There was no focus on quality or anything like that. And then I worked in another place in the suburbs, which was like a full brunch cafe, a little bit closer to what I'm doing now, but it wasn't quite specialty. And then, yeah, from there, I applied for a job at Axel and I got the job pretty soon afterwards and I haven't looked back.
Okay, so how long have you been at Axel for?
Just over 9 years now, so coming up to 10 years.
Okay. Tell me, what was this? When did the shift happen? Like the shift where it's like, cool, I want to work in coffee while you were at the bakery? Because you said you were doing like 4 coffees a day. What did you have an aha moment where it was like, cool, this is what I want to do? And how did that happen? if it was an aha moment?
Yeah, so yeah, as I said, at the restaurant, that was my first exposure to making coffee. And it was really when I decided to move back to Melbourne, because I obviously needed to think of what sort of job I wanted to get.
Yeah.
And I can't explain why it was, but the only thing I wanted to do was make coffee. You know, there was nothing else that interested me. So I got the bug somehow. Yeah.
Same here, mate. Like, I wish I had like an amazing story to tell where like I sip this espresso and things just change, but it's a gradual thing, right? So when did competition start? Like when did competition start and how did that start?
Yeah, so competition started for me. The interest started when I came to Axel, actually, because there's a heavy culture in competition here within the business. So our boss, owner of Axel, Dave Macon, so he's two-time Australian champ, came second in the world in 2008. So he opened Axel with a lot of that reputation behind him. And since then, we've had a series of people compete. So when I came to Axel, I was suddenly immersed in this sort of environment of people who, you know, enjoyed competition and, you know, held themselves to a bit of a higher standard.
Okay.
So that's where the interest began. And I started competing in 2015.
2015. Okay. What was the first comp like?
What was it like?
Yeah, come on.
Oh man, it was very overwhelming. I thought I was a lot better than I was at the time. So it was a very rude wake up call, you know. I didn't prepare enough. I realized just how far I had to go in terms of my coffee making and my competition journey. So it was a really good wake up call and gave me a good motivation to knuckle down and focus.
Okay. So are there any specifics that attracts you to barista competition and going in barista specifically? Because there's a lot of disciplines. Have you competed in any of the other competitions? So latte art, coffee and good spirits, or brewing?
Yeah. Well, I think I wanted to do barista competition because it had the biggest impact on what I did on a day-to-day basis. You know, so especially here in Australia, 80 to 90% of the coffees that we serve are espresso based. So I wanted to do a competition that would directly improve my job behind the bar. So it made sense for me to do barista competition. And espresso is just one of those things too that I've just found, no matter how long I've been working in coffee, I'm still learning more about espresso and I'm still refining my skills. And it's an endless rabbit hole, just like a lot of our other areas are. But there's just something about espresso that just attracts me to it. So it's a lifelong journey of mastery.
It never ends, right? It never ends. It's a slippery slope. I always say it's a slippery slope.
That's it. Yeah.
So,
you know just as well as anyone.
You're a very smooth guy, Anthony. You're super chilled. Like even backstage, I was like, this guy, like he's not feeling any stress, right? And I think even on stage, you make it seem extremely easy, given that you've got the experience in all these things. But what kind of challenges would you say come with barista competition that some people won't expect? Like that can either be on stage or off stage in your preparation. Like what kind of like challenges could people look out for when coming into barista competition?
Yeah. Well, firstly, thank you for saying that. I'm glad it comes across that way. A lot of work goes into that. I've had plenty of moments in my career where it's been a very stressful process. Even preparing for this routine was very stressful. So there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that people maybe don't see. But yeah, I think things that could catch you off guard is definitely taking care of your mindset. So that's something that I realized the importance of this year. You know, that's something that some people might not think about so much when it comes to preparing for comp. So last year, like not this year, but the last time I competed, I had a horrible time in terms of the mindset. So mentally, I wasn't in a very good place. Physically, I wasn't as well. Like I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't sleeping. I was eating like a pig. You know, just like it was pretty bad. And that really affects your performance on stage. You know, that affects your confidence. That affects your ability to stay calm. So for me, I did a lot of work this year in terms of like just trying to be healthy, look after myself, having self-awareness as to my own emotions as well. So recognizing when I'm feeling stressed, recognizing when I need to take a moment to do some deep breathing or some meditation or things like that.
Very nice,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, it's a lot more than just like what you're doing on stage in the coffee itself, because you've got to be able to perform under that high pressure. So given
There's so much
all of
around
the
it.
stress, yeah, exactly. And given all the stress,
Yeah.
like, I'm not sure if you've had any moments where you tell yourself, like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I doing this? Right? Yet we still
Yeah.
come back and we compete year after year, right? Why would you encourage baristas out there to go through all of this and compete?
I think when you're competing, it's very easy to get caught up in the result. But what you've got to remember is 90% of the reward is in the process. You know, like, I've learned so much in life in general, you know, about myself, coffee making, presentation skills, all sorts of skills just through the process of competing, you know. And sure, it's great to win, but I think it's really important to bring everything back to the process and everything you're gaining out of that. So for me, 90% of what I know about coffee is through competition, and it's allowed me to connect with some pretty amazing people from all over the world, including yourself, you know. So yeah, it's, there's a lot of rewards that come with it. So I think, yeah, focus on the process. Yeah, that's probably the biggest piece of advice I'd have around that.
Yeah, that's great. And I like what you said earlier.
Yeah.
You said, like, you compete in barista because it directly affects what you do day to day. So you go to competition, you come back, and it just helps you behind bar.
That's it.
So
yeah,
you started competing 2015. When did you first make Aussie finals? Which year was that? Your first year of Aussie finals?
that was 2016.
2016.
So
It's your second year of competing, you were in finals.
yes, yep.
What a guy. Hey, what a guy.
Well, my first year was so bad that I came back and I'm like, I'm going to work my butt off. So I worked extremely hard the next year, and yeah, thankfully did quite well.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So what was it like your first year compared to making it to Aussie finals, compared to being at the WBC and then being in the finals of WBC? What's the difference between all of those rounds and the stakes and the pressure and all those kind of things?
Yeah, so just to clarify the question, sorry, is the difference between my first time at the Australian finals and my first time at the World finals, right?
And then being in the actual finals at Worlds as well.
Yeah. So the Australian finals, the first time I was in the Australian finals, it was just an incredible experience because it was the first time, and you know, I didn't really have anything before that, so I had no benchmark. And yeah, it was just very exciting. I was very sort of proud and happy to be there. Then the next 5 years, you know, I was in the Australian finals again, so it became quite familiar. So coming into the World finals, it was pretty cool because it was the first time I'd been there.
Yeah.
You know, and our goal sort of within the company as well was just to reach finals, you know, and on finals, the goal was just to have fun and see what happened. You know, we didn't want to put too much pressure on ourselves to win, and like, no matter what, you got to become the world champion. We just wanted to get to finals. And yeah, just being there surrounded by people in the industry who I have a lot of respect for, people like Ben Put, for example, who I've watched over the years. And he's just been a bit of an inspiration for me, and to share the stage with him, what a feeling, you know, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. The competitors all seemed a lot more relaxed in final round as well. Would you say first round is more stressful than semis, or semis more stressful than first round?
Yeah, definitely it got better throughout the rounds for me. So my semis was the most stressful. And because there's so many competitors too, you have less time to prepare from your practice to your setup and, you know, your routine. So we did our practice time, and it was just like, okay, let's hustle, we'll get the trolley set up. And then as soon as the trolley's set up, we've got to be on stage. And it was a bit of a rush that day. So that was stressful, but semi-finals had a bit more time and it was a little more relaxed.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. So it's obviously been a whirlwind couple of weeks since winning. Before we get to WBC, success in Australian competitions, has it affected your life in general, just being at barista competition? Obviously, it keeps you busy when you're in competition season, but you've been competing and making finals at the Aussie comp for 5 years in a row. Is that correct?
Yeah,
For
6 years,
5 years.
this one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like you've got to balance your time, right? Because whenever it's competition time, it's the focus for the year. How do you balance going to barista competition, working, life outside of coffee and all those things? Do you do anything outside of coffee that kind of gives you a balance?
Yeah, look, when a bit of my nature as well is to sort of obsess and laser focus on things. You know, I'm not very good at multitasking, so plenty of times my life has sort of fallen out of balance. I think the most important thing I've realized over the years is you need to focus as much of your attention as you can on the competition, but there's other things that you need to keep on maintenance, you know, so just some like light exercise and things like that each week. Anything I don't need to be doing though, like hobbies or things like that, I'll essentially cut out, you know, whilst I'm preparing for barista competition, and just focus all my attention on that. Obviously relationships, you need to maintain them, you know, and it's been a little bit hard on the girlfriend leading up to this campaign. Anyone who's dating a barista competitor knows how difficult it is. So she's been amazing and very supportive. But yeah,
that's awesome. And
yeah,
and the last few weeks since winning WBC, like how have things changed? Like it's obviously been interviews and all those kind of things, but like give us a bit of insight into the 3 weeks post winning WBC. What's it been like?
Yeah, it's been great. It's been a bit of a high, you know, like it's something that we've been working towards for a while, and it's just we're incredibly excited by it on one hand, but on the other hand, it's kind of like, so what do we do now? You know, like we're here, what's next? So I've been sort of navigating that with my boss and the team as to what direction we want to go, and you know how we're going to support each other moving forward. But yeah, like you said, we've got plenty of interviews and things. We've got opportunities sort of coming our way to travel to different places, sponsorships and things like that. So we're just trying to make sure that we're choosing the right people to work with, the right partnerships to make, the right opportunities, and
Awesome.
just try and enjoy it as much as we can.
Yeah, mate, I love that you say we, because I think that was so apparent when you won. It was Anthony, but it was the team. I remember wanting to grab a second bag of your coffee at the stand, and they put up a sign when you did your final set, and they were like, "Gone to watch Anthony. We'll be back in 20 minutes." And I was like, these guys aren't going to be back in 20 minutes. They'll probably be back in like an hour. And when they called your name out, the team just went absolutely crazy. And I think when they embraced you on stage, I love the image of you and I think it's Matt, right? You and Matt and another guy just holding you up. Like, that was really cool to see. And I could see like it was a team effort and like everyone shared in your joy, which was really nice. So outside of coffee, where do we find Anthony? Like, what do you do outside of coffee? Like, what do you do in your spare time? So one of the challenges of their first weekend arriving in Melbourne was a big AFL final, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to assume because you're an Aussie, you're into sport, because I mean, South Africa and Australia, we've got a couple of rivalries when it comes to sport. So where do we find Anthony outside of coffee?
Yeah, so life's been pretty busy recently. So I just got, when you were talking about the team, I just got emotional because the guys have been such an amazing support. So where you can find me outside of competition, things have been pretty busy. So these days I'm trying to spend as much time with my partner as I can, you know, so lots of dating and going out for nice dinners and things like that. I enjoy studying other languages too. So currently working on Korean. So really trying to work towards fluency in Korean at the moment.
Come on, Anthony, hit us with some. All I remember, 안녕하세요, right? Is that right? I think that's all that I know.
That's right.
That's all I remember. Right?
Yeah.
From Seoul.
Yeah.
Okay, you love other languages. When you come to visit South Africa, we got to teach you some Xhosa, right? When you visit South Africa, we got to teach you some Xhosa. We'll show you all the clicks, right?
Okay.
Definitely going to be something different.
That's hard though, man. I've heard it's really difficult, but sure. Let's do it.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So you like to learn other languages. You've traveled quite a bit, I'm assuming. Why Korean specifically?
Oh, well, my partner's actually Korean, so that's a really good motivation.
There we go.
Yeah, and it's just a really enjoyable language. I love the sound of the language. I love the food. Love the country, so it just sort of makes sense.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I jumped the gun earlier when we were chatting and asking you about this picture. We've got what looks to me like a young Anthony Douglas. Can you explain this photo for us? Like where are you? I'm assuming you're on a coffee farm.
That's right. Yep. So that photo was taken in Colombia, and the year was 2018. So that was an origin trip that I'd done with my head roaster and green bean buyer Matt Crowley, and we were doing some travel with CopyNet. So I think, if I remember correctly, the region that we're in that photo was Armenia.
Okay.
Yeah, my memory is a little foggy.
Sourcing a coffee for BaristaComp?
Yes, we were actually there. So we visited CopyNet. We also visited La Palma y El Tucán that year as well.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Cool. So we're gonna take a quick look at Anthony's signature beverage video. Check this out, and we'll be right back after with a few more questions.
Hey everyone, my name is Anthony Douglas. I'm the 2022 World Barista Champion. And I'm going to walk you through how I prepared my signature drink. So I've got all the tools, all the ingredients. We just need to start preparing some espresso. So I'm just working on the Barista Attitude Storm. So I'm using a recipe of 22.5 grams in. I'll be yielding 40 grams out for one of the espresso and 50 grams out for the other. Great, so the weights are both perfect on those. Now I'm just going to distribute them and tap them so they extract really well. Now the 50 gram yield is going to showcase complexity in the drink, and the 40 gram yield, which is the recipe I use for my milk course, is going to showcase intensity. Okay, so we're getting these extracting. Okay, so we're going to split this drink into two components. So the espresso with the 50 gram yield is going in our magnetic stirrer here. And the espresso with the 40 gram yield is going to go into our cream gun over here. Now we'll start adding some ingredients. So over here, the first ingredient we'll be adding is a lacto-fermented passion fruit syrup. So how I prepared this is I've combined 1 part passion fruit, 1% salt, and I've fermented it at room temperature for 5 days. Now this has increased the intensity of the passion fruit, and this translates to a flavour note of plum in the signature drink. Now I'm just going to turn this on because it has a hot plate that's going to heat the drink as we go. Now the next ingredient is 5 grams of Colombian honey. So we actually sourced this from the farm in Colombia. Now this has a sweetness and a complexity that reminds me of the coffee that I used, El Diviso, and in the signature drink, this is going to create a flavour note of sultana. So we're going to let this go for a moment. We'll jump over to this end of the table. Now over here, we have a cold brew hibiscus tea. So I prepared this by combining 1 part hibiscus with 15 parts water for 12 hours at 4 degrees. So we'll just add this in to our cream gun. Now next we have 12 grams of cryo-desiccated date syrup. So I prepared this by combining 1 part date with 1 part water. We've sous vide it for 3 hours at 60 degrees. Now from here, we've cryodesiccated it. So cryodesiccation is another word for freeze drying, and this has doubled the concentration of flavour and intensity in this ingredient. Okay, so the ingredients are in. All we've got to do now is wait for this to come up to temperature, and then we can put this drink together. And there we go. It's okay, we're going to edit it out. Okay, so whilst this is heating up, I'm going to heat it up to 70 degrees. We'll finish off this component. Just going to dry this. So we've had this at 70 degrees as well. So the idea is, once the final drink is served, it'll be 50 to 55 degrees in the glass. So I'm just going to charge this with nitrogen. It's going to really showcase that creamy texture in the drink. So we will flush this out into this beaker. And we'll pop it aside. So this is up to temperature now. I'm going to take this out and combine this with the second half of the drink. Strain the liquid. Okay, now we're ready to serve it up. So this signature drink that I served had flavour notes that I mentioned of plum, cranberry, sultana, but there was also a flavour note of sweet toffee. The texture was nectar-like and has a beautiful floral aroma. So before serving it, I'm just going to pop on these aromatic discs to let it cool. And whilst it's cooling, these discs help trap the aromatics, keeping all that flavour inside the drink. So that way, when you take the disc off and you're ready to enjoy it, it's vibrant, it's juicy, and really delicious. So that is my winning signature drink. Thanks for watching.
Cool video, Anthony. Do you want to give us a bit more insight into the drink? What was your inspiration for the recipe and the technique?
Yeah, so as I mentioned in the video, there's 4 key ingredients for the signature drink. In my routine, we had 4 key decisions. So the idea behind my routine was building trust through the decisions that you make as a barista to deliver upon experiences in the cup. So we chose 4 of those decisions, were the ones that we felt had the biggest impact or were the most interesting. And we directly related them to 4 key ingredients. So the first ingredient was lacto-fermented passion fruit. And that was representing the anaerobic fermentation that Eldavizo went through, which was my coffee. This helped contribute to more flavor clarity and more articulation of flavor in the cup. So representing that was lacto-fermented passion fruit. The second ingredient was Colombian honey. So it was honey produced on the farm in Colombia. We chose this because it had a sweetness and a complexity that was reminiscent of Eldavizo, and it just brought a balancing sweetness to the cup. The third key decision was the third ingredient, was cold brewed hibiscus tea. Now we chose that because it had really nice tannins, and the tannins sort of represented the tannins in Eldavizo, which we helped showcase through roasting. So the fourth key decision was a cryodesiccated date syrup. So cryodesiccation, if you're not familiar with it, that's a technique that I applied to my milk course. So it's another word for freeze drying. So we freeze dried the milk into a powder. We recombined it with the original milk, essentially turbocharging it and just increasing the concentration of all that good stuff that we love in milk. So the cryodesiccated date syrup was date syrup that I had sous vide and cryodesiccated to concentrate the flavor and the intensity of the syrup.
Nice.
Yeah.
Man, oh man.
So we had yeah. So those are the four ingredients. We had essentially two techniques that we used to create the drink. So one of them was a magnetic stirrer. So we had it stirring the entire routine whilst it was heating. And this we found highlighted sweetness and articulation because as it was stirring, it was also aerating the drink. So that aeration I found really helped improve the sweetness, the articulation, as well as the texture a little bit in the drink. The other technique that we used was cream gun and a spuma gun. So we charged it with nitrogen in a cream gun. We held it on a hot water bar at 70 degrees, and that thickened and increased the presence of texture, making it really nice and almost nectar-like, like think fruit nectar.
Oh man. Oh, to be a WBC judge, hey?
It was such a good drink. Yeah, lots of work went into it. So, yeah.
Oh man. Wow, folks. That's about it for Anthony Douglas today. Can I just add in a little 5 cents, Anthony? You said you got a little bit emotional about your team, and I think for me, of all the WBCs I've seen and been to, I think it's been the best interpretation of when everyone says going to any barista competition is always a team effort. Like there's one individual on stage, but there's always a team behind the individual that makes it possible. It was really cool to see that and experience that. So Anthony Douglas, I thank you, my friend, our WBC champion for 2022. It's been my pleasure to interview you. First and foremost, though, thanks to our sponsors once again. Anthony, can you give a little, just a point over your shoulder there to the barista attitude? Right. Thank you very much.
That's true. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. As well as Scotsman's Ice, our product sponsor. Right. We'll be back next week interviewing another All-Stars. But for now, it's goodbye for me and goodbye from Anthony. Any parting words, Anthony, before we call it a day?
Oh, look, I just, it was a pleasure to connect with you, and a really fun interview, and hope to see you somewhere in the world soon.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks everyone for watching.
Have a good one. Cheers, folks. See you soon.